Hi all, I have a great interest in studying the attacking players in general, the dynamic aggressive players, and let's have a look at another notable game today by Dragoljub Velimirovic, this time in Reykjavik 1974, who was playing white against Julius Fridjonsson. And Velimirovic, for those that don't know, was an international master in 1971, a grandmaster in 1973, so he got his grandmaster title a year before this game. Yugoslav champion 1970, 75 and 1997, so quite a long stretch there. He was nicknamed the Boss and sometimes referred to as the Yugoslav Tau. So a well-liked, innovative and feared attacking tactician. And in this game we have really an attacking masterclass at many different levels. Let's have a look. E4. We have a Sicilian Defense, and Velimirovic uses his own system here called the Velimirovic attack after. So we have an open Sicilian, and the trademark idea of the Velimirovic attack is bishop e3, this other bishop coming here, and now this key move is queen e2. So basically keeping an eye on the g4 square against knight g4, but also to play g4 himself. The bishop is supporting the knight, white's ready to castle queenside. White hasn't castled kingside. A lot of fun in chess is when both sides castle on the other side. So white castling queenside and black on the kingside guarantees quite a fun game. So a6 and white castles queenside, black castles kingside. It's not yet terminal in this particular position to castle here on the kingside. Bishop b3. Queen c7, now g4. A very logical idea, very logical setup for this g4, g5. It's nice to be able to kick that knight on f6 away, even just for central control implications. Black takes on d4 here. This is actually the most common move in live book. And here, interestingly, not bishop takes d4, but rook takes d4. And you might think, isn't the rook a little bit useless on d4 in terms of trying to get an attack later, maybe on the king? That is a point which is contestable here. The rook can have an influence over king's safety, so it is an interesting option, but it's also eyeing, of course, the d6 pawn. We have b5, and you'll see what I mean with this rook now. We have g5 kicking that knight to d7, and here the most common move in live book is actually rook g1. There's 44 games here with rook g1. And this is actually quite a rare choice nowadays, what is played, e5, but it does mean the rook can come to h4 rapidly. From an engine perspective, this is meant to be okay for black. If we look at the most trodden path move, rook g1, just briefly, knight c5, we can have e5 delayed here, just waiting for that knight to commit to c5, and this is quite dangerous. Still the same sort of idea. So even though he might not have had the exact move order for later generations to study his games, the idea of switching the rook via d4 to h4 is one attacking notion of interest from this game. In this line here, white can at least try and break through like this potentially with rook takes h5, and that's really dangerous, this position here. Just to show you another line more clearly, here rook h4, bishop f8 is pretty bad for white. That's a disaster line. So that's if rook g1 in this position, if queen h5 is played without e5, so that can lead to a disaster with the queen getting trapped. So the idea of e5 is quite important, but yes, it's rarely played here apparently nowadays. First rook g1, which is kind of flexible move, and also gives ideas like rook g3 and maybe rook h3, queen h5 as well as e5. But anyway, in the game after e5, black actually played d5, and he gets a kind of, we have a kind of French defense structure that you might recognize. And the question is here, is this really justified, switching the rook like this? Isn't e5 just there for the taking. There's two different ways of taking on e5 here. Now in the game, actually g6 was played. Maybe, you know, the opponent feared him a bit, his reputation. If we look at knight takes e5 though first as an alternative, this is actually really quite dangerous. Queen h5, and where's black's defense? If h6, rook g1, this can be quite crushing. Knight g6, and white's just crashing through basically. H takes g7. If the rook moves now, rook takes g6, queen h8. This is an example line. Queen takes e8, crashing through. So this is really dangerous. So that's taken with a knight, and you might think, well, taking with a queen is also quite dangerous. Queen h5 again sets some problems, and here there's a key tactical move which helps justify white's pressure, and the loose rook on a8. Some loose points here. Knight takes d5 in this variation. E takes, bishop takes, with the idea of double attacking a8 and also bishop e4, and this justifies the concept, the whole concept of switching the rook basically. That's why I want to show these variations. They're dangerous here, very dangerous if black takes. Either way, the pawn on e5. So he tries to play it safe here. He doesn't want a queen basically coming into h5. He plays g6, saying to white, you know, if you're going to play f4, well, you're blocking in your bishop, and maybe I'm going to develop some initiative on the queen side here against your king. So f4 is actually played now, supporting e5. And for the moment, it seems, you know, what are these Morozovich rooks? And this is a French defense structure. Surely black is going to, like, you know, get control of the position soon, you'd think. And with tempo, with b4, he does play b4, and this is really important for the attacking player to note. A really important position. It looks like we're playing against a French defense structure. Where does the knight actually want to go? The thing is, white can be completely run over on the queen side here, especially with the Morozovich looking rooks. Just to demonstrate that idea, if knight d1, here's a sample variation, bishop b7, and you see black's control of c5 and b6 is good here. He's got 3 pieces controlling the c5 square. And we see here bishop d4 as an example, queen c6, which supports a5, a4. So c3, a5, and there's threats like a4. If the bishop goes back in advance, then black stretches out bishop a6 with tempo, rook here, and it's difficult for white to get an attack. Rook h3, but the knight's always ready for h7 defense, and black is much more ready on the queen side here. Knight c5, and it's getting just really incredibly dangerous here. There's very dangerous possibilities. Also note, you know, queen h4, there's h5 here tactically. So if white has to give up the bishop to try and slow down things, this position massively favours black. Basically, white's getting run over on the queen side. This is absolutely no good. That's why this game is very, very interesting. It shows us how to play basically against the French defense structure with the Morozovich rooks. That's basically the 2 ingredients here. He plays knight a4. A knight on the rim is dim, except in this case it's slowing down black's queenside initiative. It's keeping a grip on key squares, and even if the piece is won, by that time white hopefully has an attack that has crashed through on the king side. The purpose of this knight on the rim is to slow down black's attack, all with tempo, you know, slows down the a pawn for sure, literally blockading the a pawn. So it's an anti-French defense attack with Morozovich rooks. I'll describe this position. Bishop b7, bishop d4. You notice stronger grip on the dark squares here with the knight there, but the knight is targeted now, and it looks to be just ready to be taken basically with queen a5. But queen e3, the idea of switching here, and black plays rook fb8 here. Now let's see if he didn't do that and played to win the knight. Let's have a look at this variation. Queen h3, the tactical defense h5, but this fails here. Rook takes h5, so we're threatening to mate black. If it's taken, queen takes, and it's just too slow to win this knight. It's too slow. If bishop takes a4, g6, and although that piece has been won, it has done its job. It's slowed down black on the queen side for white to crash through on the king side. So white's just, absolutely crushing attack here. This is intolerable, this position. If rook fe8 to try and offer knight f8 as defense, g6, and again it's absolutely crushing. So you see, these are key ideas to slow down black on the queen side. So we have a classic game here, opposite side castling. A key trick of the trade from the master, one of the masters of attack, is basically to slow black down, even if it means a knight on the rim. So these variations echo that. Rook fb8 was played. And again, another key move, delicate, calm move before the storm. Not an immediate f5. This doesn't appear to work very well here, an immediate f5. If an immediate f5, you might think, to try and break open the lines, try for g6 or e6, if this e6, if this g6, doesn't work particularly well, because black can take with the g pawn safely, it seems, after rook g1, knight f8. It doesn't seem that convincing for how white breaks through here. The way this was played was with rook g1, waiting for black to use a move up here, and basically is totally ready for g takes with g6 now. And you might think, well, hold on, couldn't black play knight f8 in this position? And I really wish I'd pre-analysed that. I'm just coming to think about it. If black doesn't want to play queen a5 as in the game, let's have a quick check. Knight f8. Now here the knight actually offers a surprise on the queen side with knight b6. Incredibly. Yeah, because we've actually got a battery on the queen side on a7. If here, knight takes d5. Remarkable play on both sides of the board. So knight b6 is actually good for white here. That's the key point. Actually a key point. Let's turn that off. So that's a remarkable point about this position. It's basically the knight is having some magical impacts on the conduct and defense of the attacks here on the king side and the queen side, if knight b6 is actually a possibility. Of course it's had influence on b6 and c5, but it's not just defensive, it's aggressive here on knight f8. So basically black, he played queen a5 going for that knight, but as mentioned, this rook g1 in advance makes f5 much more successful here. f5 actually seems to break through now. If g takes f5, for example, this wasn't played, black actually took the knight, but if he played g takes f5, rook takes h7 is the crushing blow here. So absolutely no time for knight f8. If takes check, g6, just absolutely destroying black's king safety, getting to black's king. So that's an example there. In this position, if e takes f5, then this pawn is liberated. e6, and this is absolutely crushing this position here. Look at the bishop and the queen and the rook coming through. So basically here, black, he took the knight. And you might think, well, he's still going to get in his defensive move, knight f8, right? He's going to be able to defend h7, and surely, even if some of his pawn chain around the king is dissolved here, he's going to be able to defend, right? F takes e6 is played. F takes e6. Queen h3. Targeting not just h7 but e6. So knight f8 seems absolutely necessary to defend both h7 and e6. But here is the punchline. Can you guess what white plays in this position? If I give you 5 seconds starting from now. Okay, rook takes h7. So white is threatening to come in with a mate in 2. So that's taken. Queen takes e6 check. The king doesn't really want to step onto this diagonal. So king f8. But now check on the f file. King 8. And now rook to the 7th. Threatening mate. White is basically broken through. Even though he's lost the piece, he's broken through. Rook b7. And now bishop takes a4 check. Dragging the queen to a4 here is not very helpful for black. Rook takes h7. Threatens mate with rook h8. So the king tries to make a run for it. But here, one of the points of the queen being here is it's not controlling b6. Bishop b6 check. Ouch. And this is just mating now. Rook takes b6. Queen takes e7. With mate to follow, black resigned here. This game is an attacking masterclass. It sets a pattern of attack for a rook coming to d4 with switching implications to h4. Although the move order might have been evolved slightly, the Velimirovic attack, the template for it, with the king castle and king side, starting to have other implications with this g5 for a rook switch. What was remarkable, you see the RAF of black's potential queenside initiative is taken out in advance with a knight on the rim. And it seems it did more than just slow down black. In some variations with the knight f8, it was actually coming to b6 tactically, because white has this battery here, the bishop and queen, not just with an influence on the king side potentially, but also for the b6 square. It seems an a7 square, ridiculously. And even when black got in the knight f8, the rook sack smashed through. This was a masterclass attack against an early try with d5. But nowadays, as I say, the e5 pawn attack is delayed a little bit with rook g1. But the patterns of this game are worthy of study, in my opinion. I hope you got something out of it. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.